You've been told the Canadian dream is a steady job, a house in the suburbs, and a pension at 65. But look around you. The silence in the suburbs isn't peace. It's the sound of a million Canadians holding their breath until the next payday. There is a shadow fact that no one in Ottawa wants to discuss. The middle class in Canada isn't just shrinking, it's being systematically dismantled by the very institutions that claim to protect it. We live in a velvet cage. It's warm, it's safe, and it's comfortable enough that you don't notice the bars until you try to move. You feel that low-level anxiety every time you tap your card at the grocery store, a visceral tightening in your chest as you watch the total climb higher for the same basic staples. This isn't just inflation, it's a psychological trap. We are conditioned to believe that if we just work a little harder, maybe 5 more hours of overtime or a side hustle, we'll finally get ahead. But the math doesn't add up anymore. The gap between your effort and your reward is widening. And by the end of this journey, you'll understand the terrifying reason why your comfort is actually your greatest enemy. The loop begins now.
Let's talk about the visceral pain of the grocery aisle. Walking into a Loblaws or a Sobeys shouldn't feel like a high-stakes gamble, yet here we are. You pick up a block of cheese, a carton of eggs, and some chicken breast, and suddenly you've spent $50. The psychological toll of this micro-bleeding is profound. It's not just about the money, it's about the loss of agency. You work 40, 50, 60 hours a week in the cold Canadian winter, and you can't even fill a cart with a sense of impending doom. This is the Loblaws effect. It's the realization that your labor is being devalued in real time. While corporate profits soar to record heights, the average Canadian family is debating whether they can afford fresh produce. This creates a state of survival mode, a dark psychological state where your brain stops planning for the future and starts obsessing over the next meal. When you are in survival mode, you are easy to control. You don't take risks, you don't start businesses, and you certainly don't challenge the status quo. You just keep rowing the boat, even as it takes on water. But what if I told you that this struggle is by design? What if the system needs you just desperate enough to keep working, but just comfortable enough not to revolt?
The comfort trap is most visible in our housing. For decades, the Canadian identity was tied to homeownership. Now, that dream has been weaponized against us. Whether you are in the GTA, Vancouver, or even once affordable cities like Halifax, the cost of a roof over your head has become a predatory debt trap. If you rent, you are paying someone else's skyrocketing mortgage, effectively subsidizing their wealth while your own net worth stagnates. If you own, you are likely house poor, chained to a variable rate that moves at the whim of the Bank of Canada. You are one interest rate hike away from disaster. The psychological weight of this is immense. Your home is no longer a sanctuary, it's a liability. You stay in a job you hate because the mortgage demands it. You tolerate a toxic boss because the thought of missing a payment is more terrifying than the daily humiliation of your cubicle. This is the golden handcuffs of the Canadian middle class. We are the most indebted nation in the G7 for a reason. We have traded our freedom for the illusion of stability. But as the interest rates climb, that stability is revealed to be a house of cards, built on a foundation of lies. But wait, it gets darker when you see where the taxes go.
Every time you receive your T4, you see the CRA's hand reaching into your pocket before you even touch your money. We're told our taxes pay for a world-class healthcare system and social safety nets. But when was the last time you found a family doctor? How long is the wait at the ER in your town? The tax bite in Canada is one of the most aggressive in the world for the middle class. We are the squeezed middle. We earn too much to qualify for any government subsidies, but not enough to afford the private workarounds that the ultra-wealthy use. You are essentially working from January until June just to pay the government. This creates a motivation vacuum. Why strive for a promotion when the tax bracket jump eats most of the raise? Why innovate when the regulatory burden and tax implications make it impossible to scale? This is the invisible ceiling of the Canadian economy. We are being bled dry by 1,000 cuts. Carbon taxes, provincial taxes, sales taxes, and the hidden tax of inflation. We are told it's for the greater good, but as you sit in a crowded waiting room for 6 hours, you start to wonder where that good actually is. And yet, there is an even bigger mistake you are making with your TFSA.
The TFSA and RRSP are touted as the ultimate tools for wealth, but for most Canadians, they are misunderstood traps. People treat their TFSA like a high-interest savings account, earning a measly 1% while inflation runs at 4% or 5%. You are literally losing purchasing power in an account designed to save you. Or worse, the RRSP refund trap. You get a nice check back in April and spend it on a vacation or a new TV, forgetting that the money is just a deferred tax bill. You aren't winning, you're just pushing the pain into the future. The psychological trick here is temporal discounting. The government gives you a small win today, so you don't notice you're losing the war tomorrow. Most Canadians are using these tools to build a poverty fund rather than a wealth fund. They are playing not to lose rather than playing to win. This mindset is exactly what the Big Five banks want. They want your money sitting in low-yield mutual funds with high MERs, slowly being eaten away by fees while they use your capital to fund their own expansion. You are the fuel for their engine, and they have convinced you that you're the driver. But the real danger isn't what you're doing with your savings. It's what the Bank of Canada is doing with your future.
The Bank of Canada is the ghost in the machine of your life. When they talk about inflation targets and quantitative tightening, they are using sterile language to describe the destruction of your buying power. Inflation is a hidden tax on the poor and the middle class. It's a way to devalue the debt of the government by devaluing the currency in your pocket. Think back to 10 years ago. What did $100 buy you? Now, look at your cart. That feeling of getting less for more isn't a glitch, it's a feature. The BOC's interest rate yo-yo has created a generation of Canadians who are perpetually off balance. First, they kept rates low to encourage us to drown ourselves in debt, and now they raise them to cool an economy they overheated. They are trying to fix a fire by pouring gasoline on the neighbors' houses. The psychological impact is a state of chronic financial stress. This stress shortens your lifespan, destroys your relationships, and prevents you from thinking long-term. You are being forced into a cycle of reactive living. You aren't building a legacy, you are just trying to survive the next quarter. And this is exactly where the comfort trap becomes most dangerous, when you accept this stress as the new normal for Canadians.
We have become a nation of polite debtors. In Canada, it's considered rude to talk about money, which is exactly why we are so bad at managing it. We hide our struggles behind manicured lawns and leased SUVs. We take on lifestyle debt to maintain the appearance of the middle class, even as the substance of it rots away. This is the social comparison trap. You see your neighbor with a new F-150 and think you need one too, not realizing they are 3 months away from foreclosure. We are all performing for an audience that is just as broke as we are. The dark psychology of this is that it isolates us. Because we don't talk about the struggle, we think we are the only ones failing. This shame keeps us quiet and compliant. We don't demand better because we think the problem is us, not the system. But the system is rigged to favor assets over labor. If you work for a living, you are losing. If you own things for a living, you are winning. And in Canada, the barrier to entry for owning things is being raised every single day. The ladder is being pulled up while we are still on the bottom rungs, arguing about the price of gas.
The disappearance of the middle class is not an accident. It's a mathematical certainty under current policies. When the cost of living outpaces wage growth for decades, the middle class eventually evaporates. What's left is a two-tier society, the asset class and the service class. Most of us are sliding into the service class, regardless of our job titles. You could be an engineer, a teacher, or a nurse, but if you can't afford a home in the city where you work, you are effectively a serf. This is the modern feudalism of Canada. Your landlord is your lord, and your employer is your master. The comfort trap is the belief that this is just a rough patch, and things will go back to how they were in the 90s. They won't. The structural foundations of the Canadian economy have shifted. We have traded manufacturing and innovation for real estate speculation and debt. We are a country that sells houses to each other and calls it an economy. This lack of productivity is why your dollar buys less every year. We aren't creating value, we are just inflating bubbles. And when bubbles pop, it's never the people at the top who get hurt. It's the people who were promised that their comfort was permanent.
Let's dive into the psychology of learned helplessness. This occurs when you are repeatedly subjected to negative stimuli that you cannot escape, eventually leading you to stop trying altogether. Many Canadians have reached this point. They see the house prices, they see the grocery bills, they see the taxes, and they just give up. They stop saving, they stop investing, and they start spending what little they have on doom spending, small luxuries like Uber Eats or the latest iPhone, just to feel something other than despair. This is the ultimate victory for the comfort trap. If the system can make you believe that wealth is impossible, you will stop trying to achieve it, and instead you will settle for the crumbs of comfort provided by credit cards. The banks love learned helplessness because it creates the perfect consumer, someone who has no hope for the future and therefore lives entirely for today's consumption. This is how we become a nation of permanent renters, not just of property, but of our very lives. We are renting our cars, our phones, our software, and our lifestyles. We own nothing, and the system is trying to convince us that we are happy. But the underlying tension in Canadian society tells a very different story. The anger is bubbling just beneath the surface. The relatable struggle of the Canadian commute is a perfect metaphor for our financial lives. Millions of us spend 2 hours a day in traffic on the 401 or the QEW, burning expensive fuel to get to a job that barely covers the cost of the commute and the childcare. We are literally trading our life force for the privilege of being tired. This is the time poverty trap. When you are time poor, you cannot build wealth. Wealth requires reflection, strategy, and education. But the system keeps you so busy and exhausted that you don't have the mental bandwidth to escape. You are too tired to research ETFs, too stressed to look for a better job, and too drained to start a business. The comfort trap uses exhaustion as a sedative. It keeps you in a loop of work, sleep, consume. This is why the shadow fact is so dangerous. If you realized how much of your life is being stolen by inefficiency and bad policy, you wouldn't be polite anymore. You would be demanding a total overhaul of the Canadian financial structure. But as long as you have your Netflix and your double-double, the system bets that you'll stay in line. They are betting on your complacency. Are they winning?
The education trap is another pillar of this system. We tell our youth that the only path to success is an expensive degree from a Canadian university. So they take on tens of thousands in student debt only to enter a job market that pays 2010 wages with 2024 costs. They start their lives in a hole, and by the time they climb out, they are in their mid-30s, just in time to take on a massive mortgage. We are front-loading the lives of Canadians with debt before they even have a chance to breathe. This ensures that they will be good workers for the next 30 years. Debt is the ultimate tool of social control. A person with a paid-off home and a year of living expenses in the bank is a threat to the system because they can say no. A person with a student loan, a car payment, and a mortgage cannot say no. They have to accept the stagnant wages, the corporate culture, and the rising taxes. The comfort trap is actually a debt trap with better marketing. We call it credit, a word that implies trust and belief, but the Latin root is debitum, which means something owed. We are a nation that owes its soul to the company store, and the store is owned by the big banks and the government.
The hidden tax of the Canadian dollar's weakness is something most don't consider. As our productivity drops and our economy becomes more reliant on selling houses to each other, the loonie loses value against the US dollar. This means everything we import, from the tech in your pocket to the fruit in your kitchen, becomes more expensive. You are getting a pay cut every time the Canadian dollar slips, even if your salary stays the same. This is the purchasing power erosion. It's a slow, invisible theft. The comfort trap keeps you focused on the number in your bank account, while the value of that number is dissolving like sugar in hot water. To survive in Canada, you have to stop thinking in CAD and start thinking in assets. But the government makes it harder to own assets through capital gains taxes and high barriers to entry. They want you to stay in currency because currency is what they control. They can print it, they can tax it, and they can devalue it. This is the shadow fact of the BOC. They aren't protecting the dollar. They are managing its decline to keep the debt-based system from collapsing. If you are holding your wealth in a Canadian savings account, you are the one paying for that decline.
Let's look at the healthcare mirage. Canadians take immense pride in our healthcare.
But the reality is that the middle class is paying for a service they can barely access. When you have a medical emergency, the comfort trap is shattered by a 12-hour wait in a hallway. We pay some of the highest taxes in the world, yet we have fewer hospital beds per capita than most developed nations. This is a broken social contract. You do your part, you pay your taxes, you follow the rules, but when you need the system, it's not there for you. This creates a psychological sense of betrayal trauma. You realize the safety net is full of holes. This fear drives even more comfort trap behavior. You become obsessed with security because you know no one is coming to save you. You hoard what you can, you stay in your safe job, and avoid any risks that might lead you to needing help. The irony is that this fear-based living is exactly what prevents you from achieving the very security you crave. The only way to truly be safe in the new Canadian economy is to build your own private safety net, but the system is designed to make that almost impossible for the average worker. The intergenerational wealth gap is the final nail in the coffin of the old Canadian dream. If you didn't buy a house before 2015, or if you don't have parents who can gift you a $200,000 down payment, you are playing the game on insane mode. We are seeing the creation of a landed gentry in Canada. Those who own property are becoming a different class of citizen than those who don't. The comfort trap for the younger generation is the rent forever mindset. They are told that renting is flexible and homeownership is a burden, which is a convenient narrative when they've been priced out of the market. This is gaslighting on a national scale. By convincing a generation that they don't want what they can't afford, the system prevents a social uprising. But the psychological cost is a loss of future orientation. When you can't own your space, you don't invest in your community, you don't put down roots. You become a financial nomad, moving from one overpriced rental to the next, always one renoviction away from disaster. This instability is the opposite of comfort, yet we are told this is the modern Canadian life. It's a lie designed to keep you from noticing the wealth transfer happening right under your nose.
The corporate monopoly in Canada is a major contributor to the comfort trap. We have 3 major telcos, 5 major banks, and 2 major grocery chains. This lack of competition is why Canadians pay some of the highest cell phone and internet bills in the world. It's the oligopoly tax. In a healthy economy, competition drives prices down and quality up. In Canada, the comfort trap is reinforced by these monopolies that have no incentive to innovate or lower costs. They know you have nowhere else to go. This creates a feeling of inevitability. You just accept that your Rogers bill will be $100 and your bank fees will be $20 a month. These small, recurring drains on your wealth are like parasites. Individually, they are manageable. Collectively, they are fatal. The dark psychology here is decision fatigue. There are so many of these small traps that you eventually stop fighting them. You just pay the bill and move on. This apathy is the ultimate goal of the system. An apathetic population is easy to manage. They won't look for alternatives, they won't switch to credit unions, and they won't demand antitrust legislation. They will just keep paying their oligopoly tax until there is nothing left.
Let's talk about the pension illusion. Most Canadians believe that CPP and their employer pension will be enough to sustain them, but the shadow fact is that the purchasing power of these pensions is being decimated. If inflation averages 4% over the next 20 years, your fixed pension will buy half of what it does today. The comfort trap of the pension makes you complacent. You don't save extra because you think you're covered. This is false security. When you finally reach the finish line, you'll find that the gold medal is actually gold-plated plastic. The system relies on you not doing the math. If every Canadian calculated the real-world value of their future pension against the projected cost of living, there would be a panic. This is why financial literacy is not taught in schools. The system needs you to be mathematically illiterate, so you don't see the trap until you've already walked into it. You are being led toward a retirement crisis that will make the current housing crisis look like a minor inconvenience. The only way out is to stop trusting the official narrative and start taking radical responsibility for your own financial survival. But that requires breaking the most powerful trap of all, the need to be normal. Being normal in Canada is a recipe for disaster. Normal is having $50,000 in consumer debt. Normal is having no savings. Normal is complaining about the weather and the cost of eggs while doing nothing to change your situation. The comfort trap is the desire to fit in. We are a polite society, and being extreme with your finances, like living far below your means or investing aggressively, is seen as un-Canadian. We are conditioned to be mediocre. This is the tall poppy syndrome. If you try to stand out, if you try to build real wealth, the culture tries to pull you back down. Why do you need that much money? Why are you so obsessed with work? Just relax and have a beer. This social pressure is a powerful psychological tool. It keeps you in the herd, but the herd is walking off a cliff. To escape the comfort trap, you have to be willing to be weird. You have to be the one who doesn't have the new car, the one who doesn't go on the all-inclusive vacation to Mexico on a credit card, the one who spends their weekends learning about global macroeconomics instead of watching the Leafs. Breaking the social mirror is the hardest part of the journey, but it's the only way to find the exit.
The digital distraction is the lubricant for the comfort trap. We are the most online nation, and we spend hours every day consuming content that makes us feel inadequate while simultaneously numbing our pain. Algorithms are designed to keep you in a dopamine loop. You get a hit of pleasure from a like or a short video, which distracts you from the fact that your real life is stagnating. This is digital soporific. It's a drug that keeps the population quiet. While you are arguing on Twitter or scrolling through Instagram, the policies that destroy your wealth are being passed in silence. The comfort trap has moved from our physical homes to our digital ones. We are being entertained to death. The dark psychology here is that the more stressed we are about money, the more we turn to digital distractions, which in turn makes us less productive and less able to solve our money problems. It's a self-reinforcing cycle of decay. To break free, you must reclaim your attention. Your attention is the most valuable asset you have, and right now you are giving it away for free to companies that are using it to sell you things you don't need with money you don't have.
The shadow fact of Canadian immigration is a sensitive but crucial piece of the puzzle. The government uses high immigration targets to suppress wage growth and keep housing prices high. It's a population Ponzi scheme. By bringing in more people than we have houses or doctors for, the system ensures that the asset class stays wealthy, while the service class, both new Canadians and those already here, compete for fewer resources. This creates social friction. Instead of blaming the policymakers, people start blaming their neighbors. This divide and rule tactic is as old as time. It keeps the middle class fighting over the crumbs, while the comfort trap remains intact for the people at the top. The relatable life for a new Canadian is often one of exploitation, working multiple jobs just to afford a shared room in a basement. This is the new reality of the Canadian dream. It's a dream for the few, built on the backs of the many. If we don't address the productivity gap and the infrastructure deficit, the comfort trap will eventually turn into a conflict trap. The social fabric of Canada is being stretched to its breaking point, and the comfort we once felt is becoming a distant memory.
We are reaching the end game of the comfort trap. The signals are everywhere: the rise of food banks in wealthy suburbs, the quiet quitting movement, and the mass exodus of young talent to the US or abroad. Canadians are starting to realize that the velvet cage is no longer comfortable. The heat is being turned up, and the boiling frog is finally starting to kick. But the system has one last trick: universal basic income, or more government rebates. These are financial sedatives. They give you just enough to stop you from screaming, but not enough to actually change your life. They make you dependent on the very system that caused the problem. This is the dependency trap. Once you rely on the government for your groceries, you are no longer a citizen, you are a subject. The shadow fact is that true freedom in Canada now requires financial sovereignty. It requires you to step outside the traditional path. It requires you to own hard assets, to diversify your income, and to stop believing that the system has your best interests at heart. The comfort trap is only a trap if you stay inside it. The door is unlocked, but walking through it means leaving the normal world behind.
The financial escape room of Canada is complex, but it has a solution. Step 1. Kill the consumer ego. Stop buying things to impress people you don't like. Step 2. Become an aggressive accumulator. Every dollar you save is a soldier in your army. Step 3.
Understand the tax code better than the CRA. Use every legal loophole, every corporate structure, and every deduction to keep what is yours. Step 4. Diversify out of the loonie. Own assets that are globally recognized: gold, Bitcoin, US equities, or productive land. Step 5. Build a network of the uncomfortable. Surround yourself with people who are also trying to escape the trap. The comfort trap relies on your isolation. When you join forces with others, you create a parallel economy. This is the only way to survive the coming decades. The Canadian middle class may be dying, but individuals can still thrive. You have to stop being a middle-class Canadian and start being a global asset owner. The transition is painful, but the alternative, the slow decay of your future in a basement apartment, is far worse. The choice is yours, but the clock is ticking. The interest rates are waiting.
As we close this investigation, remember the feeling you have right now. That tightness in your chest, that realization that the comfort you've been chasing is a hallucination. Don't let that feeling fade. Use it. The comfort trap is a psychological war, and the first step to winning is realizing you're in it. You are not a failure because you're struggling. You are a victim of a system that is failing you. But being a victim is a choice. You can choose to stay in the velvet cage, or you can choose the dangerous freedom of self-reliance. The path out is paved with discipline, education, and the courage to be different. The shadow fact is that Canada is still a land of opportunity, but not for those who follow the rules. The rules were written by the people who own the cage. It's time to write your own rules. It's time to stop being comfortable and start being free. The loop is closing, but your new life is